Good morning, people, and welcome to another episode of Double Take. I'm Alex Safey, here with my brother Johnny Boy, not Jonathan, Johnny Rockets, John Safey, and John. What a beautiful day to be recording a podcast, huh?
The Miami Heat are Eastern Conference champions, and we're going to the NBA Finals, baby.
Let's go. We just punched our ticket. Last night. Boston, we took them down in 6. Can you believe it, John? I mean,
we did it faster than LeBron could do it in 2012, right? That series went 7. And this Miami Heat team that were the underdogs every single round, aside from Indiana.
What a sight, John. And it's funny you mentioned that Game 6 of that LeBron had versus Boston in 2012. And this Game 6 was special for a different reason because a different player took over the game and said, I'm making sure my team is not losing tonight. And that was none other than the 23-year-old Bam Adebayo,
with his career high
in a closeout game in the playoffs.
And how about that? Tyler Hero with 37, his career high, regular season, playoffs, everything. That's his career high ever, 37 in Game 4. And now Bam with his career high, which is not even that high, 32 points. It's the most Bam has ever scored in a game in a closeout Game 6. That's called a clutch, and that's something we're going to get into later in this episode,
Absolutely.
Alex. The difference between these two teams. Right?
That's actually a good segue, John. I want to start off talking a little bit about that. And I want to make sure people remember this series correctly, John, because hindsight's 2020 and the narratives take over. And it's going to be easy. Let's say in 2, 3, 4 years when Bam's a stud and Tyler Hero's a stud, people will be able to look back and be like, you know what, that Miami team, they were loaded.
They were just better.
They were just better. They were flat out better. But I want to make sure people remember two things. I mean, one, between the media coverage with an ESPN and the broadcast, just all they did was ride the Celtics, and every time there was a free second, show Jason Tatum's kid.
They literally covered more of Jason Tatum's kid than Miami Heat players. They talked more about Deuce Tatum than Bam Adebayo.
How about Tatum would start the game 0 for 6? You're like, he's just working himself into the game.
Yeah, he's easing himself. And that's what they said yesterday.
See. Tatum is he's not playing well. Just say it like that. And so between that and then, of course, people always wanted to say Boston has a more talented team. They're definitely more top-heavy. But overall talent, I still would favor the Heat, of course. And if you want to say these teams are evenly matched, let's go look at games 1, 2, and 6. Boston, these are all games Miami Heat won. Boston had a lead in the fourth quarter. Game 1, it was 14 points. Game 2, their third quarter 17-point lead was cut to 8. But they still had an 8-point lead in the fourth. And then last night they had a 6-point fourth quarter lead, John. And you mentioned clutch, and that's what it comes down to, okay? It comes down to Miami last night outscored Boston 35-17 in the final 9 minutes of the game. And we saw, watching that game, I felt like in the fourth quarter, all right, Tatum's getting this shot, Kemba's getting this shot, Smart's shooting. They were getting looks that, all right, you make that, all right, now it's closer. Guess what? They didn't make those shots. The Heat pulled away. John, what happened in that fourth quarter?
Yeah, so, we did a bit of this after Game 1, which is crazy. We haven't done a podcast, I don't think, since after Game 1, right?
No, I think we did one after Game 3
I'm sorry,
well.
We did one after Game 3, But in Game 1, we kind of broke down the play, because I just thought that to look from the play to play to play, it was like, Hero did this, Bam did this, or Bam's block, Jimmy's three-pointer.
It really illuminates the differences in,
right.
just overall clutchness of the team and closing. And when it comes to the fourth quarter, who's going to make the plays?
Mm-hmm.
So
you could definitely see it watching last night Game 6 in the fourth quarter. It really starts at, there's 9 minutes left. We're down 96-90. And if you just watch, you could just see the clear difference between a team that does not shy away from the moment and that, embraces it and that plays their best during that moment, which I think is something that this Heat team has proved. That's been a theme of this postseason, versus a team that shrinks under the pressure.
Yeah. And
that's what we saw the Celtics do. So just to start out, they're up 6 points with under 9 minutes. And if we don't score here, it gets out of hand. And there you're thinking, all right, down 6, someone's going to have to catalyze this. And who was it quickly? It was Tyler Hero. But first, Jimmy goes to the foul line. He misses one. He misses the first one, and they're showing up what he's looking like in the second half. He's 0 for 5 in the second half, right? So not looking great so far. He makes his second free throw though, 96-91. Then we go Kemba brick. Then Duncan has an incredible drive where the defense collapses on him. Open Tyler Hero 3. Then another Marcus Smart brick on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Tyler 21-footer mid-range contested
that one was
J.
sick. I mean, that was just, dribble, pull up, mid-ranger.
So,
like a shot that you wouldn't, obviously, you would not expect a rookie
Right.
to be taking, but to take that in a crucial game and just knock it down, that was one of my favorite shots of the whole game.
So we quickly put ourselves back into it. It's tie game now, 96-96, and we're going to see this go back and forth, we think, right? So, but then we get a Jaylen Brown brick. Okay, then Tyler misses on the other side. Kemba free throws, he goes 1 of 2, and they're up 1 right now. Then Bam, with an unreal two-handed dunk right past Tice. This is what you talked about, Alex, how he just takes over at the end of the game. He's the first player since LeBron James in Miami, since 2014, to have, in Miami Heat playoffs, to have 30-plus points and 10-plus rebounds in a game. So then Tatum hits a 3. They're showing deuce, and now we think they're going to go shot for shot and just go back and forth this whole game. Bam and 1. Then a Tatum brick. Then Bam assists Jimmy. Tatum layup. Then Bam goes to the free throw line. Kemba brick. Then a Spo timeout with 5 minutes left. Duncan hits a 3. Then good defensive stop on the Heat side of it. Jaylen Brown missed a lob. Hero layup. Celtics timeout. Kemba brick. Iggy goes to the free throw line. Tatum brick. Hero scores a bucket. Marcus brick. Jimmy's fouled by Smart. Tatum gets a technical free throw, which that was confusing there. But then Jimmy gets 2 free throws, and now we're up 12. And you just hear, I just said, I just went down the line and went Kemba brick, Tatum brick, Marcus brick. Every single time they had a shot to cut it, they missed. And when on the other side, what happened? We were making those shots. And I think it finally culminates on this last 3-point Duncan Robinson dagger of a 30-footer. And that capped off a 29-7 run by the Heat. We were up 119-104. So it was 96-96. And now we were up.
I mean, forget that. It was
97-96.
And it was 96-90. They had the 6-point lead. And it's like, and I we've been saying this all series to our Boston friends. We were talking trash, but I mean, it's true. I would say anytime something would happen in the first 3 quarters, I'd say wait to the fourth. And the 2 wins the 2 games that they won were games in which it was kind of a blowout and the Celtics just ran away with it. Well, anytime it was a close game, they had not won the game.
And that's what I said right after games 1 and games 2. It was like, listen, look what happened in a very, very close game. We pulled it out, and they didn't. And that's what I was saying is I was going to be shocked to see the Celtics make any sort of comeback.
Bam, they're all very young players, but we have the leaders in Goran and Jimmy. We have our guys in our locker room, Udonis. You look at that Celtics team and who are the old vets who are kind of showing the
even
way?
Iguodala, you just didn't mention.
Oh, exactly.
A guy who's gone. This is
the
his 6th straight NBA Finals with a different team. Obviously, he went to 5 with Golden State. So and even Jay Crowder, who he's an older player, just veteran guys that they don't really have.
Yeah, well, it's not even that they don't have. They have veterans, but who are the guys who are gonna make them the younger players? There's way more pressure. It's Brown, it's Tatum, obviously. The bulk of the pressure's on those 2 guys to make it happen.
What do you say? And those guys they're still very young.
They're so young. That's what I'm saying. They're incredibly young.
Right.
And for our young guys, maybe it does come down to whoa, Tyler Hero is just more clutch than Jason Tatum. It'd be easy for me to say that.
That is a factually correct statement.
I mean,
but
I'll definitely say it to Celtics fans. But if you actually want to unpack it, it's what are the reasons? We do have the tougher guys who have been through the ringer, and the Celtics I'm sure there's more pressure on Tatum, and I don't know, maybe that's why.
I mean, look how he started this game and last game. Just shooting, he didn't score in the first half of last game, and they still ended up winning. And in this game, started off 0 for 6 before he made his first. I think he made that first 3-pointer.
But even that's not even as much. As bad as that is for your best player to start that poorly. To me, it's more about the fourth quarter, just because no matter whatever happened in the first 3 quarters, you have a chance to win the game in the fourth. You have a guy who Tatum on any given night can be definitely the best player on the court.
Oh, easily.
And Bam outplayed him.
People might have argued that if they didn't want to say it was Jimmy, they probably would have said of this going into the series, the best player of both teams is Jason Tatum. I think people would have said that.
All right, John. Let's transition a little bit to just all the other storylines that are happening. First, I want to talk about the unexpected nature of this Miami Heat finals berth. This year, we heard from a lot of different people doubting the Heat. We heard from Paul Pierce. He said, in response to Pat Riley saying, we're close, we're a piece away, whatever he said. Right, this is actually probably before the trade deadline. And Paul Pierce goes on to ESPN and says, if the Heat are close to a title, then every team in the NBA is too. Which, all right, dude. I mean, you're just being very clear that you're just salty and you're just mad about the Heat, and
honestly,
you're just chirping Pat Riley.
We could have a whole entire episode just talking about Paul Pierce and just the ridiculous. And the irony of the fact that his nickname is the Truth. Because all he spews is lies.
So funny.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, all right, another one. Charles Barkley, who I respect him way more than I don't really respect Pierce's opinions as much, but I respect Charles Barkley. But before the first round of playoffs where he played Indiana, he said, the Miami Heat don't scare anybody. So to me, this series is a pick'em. And we of course, we go on and sweep the Pacers. And then one more guy who's been doubting us. Colin Cowherd, all throughout the year, he said, at one point, I think this might have been last year, he was like, oh, who's Bam? He said that our rookies can't shoot. He said...
2 undrafted guys in their starting lineup.
Let's slow down on Bam. He's a ascending player, but he's not close to a star yet. Another thing he said after we sweep the Pacers, John, he said, because of course Miami Heat people on Twitter were just always chirping him, and what he said after the Pacers series was, I just watched the whole game. Miami will get exposed next round. This is against the Bucks, who we beat in 5 games. It really should have been 4. So he said that, and now look at us. We're in the finals. So
we're gonna get exposed.
So this underdog story, John, this was one of the reasons why this team is definitely a top favorite Miami Heat team versus you said your favorite. I don't know if I have to still think about it. It's hard for me to measure like that.
Oh no, come on.
And one reason that this is, the Miami Heat have surpassed everyone's expectations is the emergence of Bam Adebayo, as you want to call him, a star, a superstar, whatever it is. He came to play, and I'm so glad we have him. It's his 3rd season in the league. He's an incredible leader. He shouldered all the blame for our Game 5 loss that we got blown out. And what does he do? How do you respond? That's a lot of being a superstar, in my opinion. It's not the bad games. It's more how do you respond to the bad games. Everyone except for maybe like LeBron or Jordan. Most people have bad games.
Even LeBron and Jordan.
Yeah, I mean those guys are way
right.
Fewer and farther in between. But anyway, you're gonna have a bad game when you're a star. And how do you respond? And Bam came out, John, last night, 32 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists on 11 for 15 shooting, and he's way ahead of schedule.
And it's not even just a point about showing up and playing that. It's the leadership. It's the ownership that he's taken after the game and saying, this is my fault. And Jimmy also is there to say, no, this isn't even his fault, and I didn't play well. And it's everyone on our team saying, I need to buy in and do my part better and own it.
Extreme ownership. Shout out Jocko.
Yeah, exactly.
Shout out Ashworth.
But quickly, Alex, before we get all into the breakdown of the team, I want to get back to the point. So you talk about Paul Pierce. With him, I think he's just insecure and salty that he's not talked about as a better player because he never won more championships.
He clearly has a vendetta against the Heat.
And LeBron. He doesn't have LeBron as a top 5 player of all time.
He already said yesterday, he said, if LeBron wins this, I'll put him right behind Jordan.
Yeah, okay. We'll get out of here. Whatever. So clearly that's emotional bias. Charles Barkley, I think he's just kind of... He's like, you remember when he said, oh, the Nuggets are going to win this guaranteed, and then the Jazz blew him out. So I think he's just kind of... He just says that and it's fun and whatever. But yeah, you're right. We could also push back on him for not watching enough Miami Heat basketball. Mm-hmm. But then we get to the Colin Cowards and the Stephen A. Smiths and even the Max Kellermans, who's someone who I think is a rational guy and watches sports. And even the Nick Wrights, who I love Nick Wright. These guys are purely for entertainment. And unfortunately, not a lot of people watch the 4 to 5 seeded team throughout the regular season in the Miami Heat. You know who the people who are real? Zach Lowe, who was talking about us and wrote an incredible ESPN article about Bam in the middle of the season. David Jacoby is another one who said, I watch basketball. I'm on the Heat. I'm picking the Heat in the Bucks. I think it was like a month before the bubble.
It was
before the bubble started. I think he said that.
It was it was very early.
It was
like
early.
June or something.
So you can tell, and even Kendrick Perkins, and there's a lot of other former players who I would want to put in that conversation. These are the guys who I think watch basketball, and because you watch, and that's why I think, Alex, we had an unfair advantage because we're Heat fans. We watched the whole season. We knew what they were capable. We saw them beat the Bucks, not only on our home court, on their home court as well. And so on a neutral court, going into that series, when the Bucks weren't looking great in the bubble, that was not too hard of a pick. And I picked it in my bracket. You didn't even pick it in yours, but I picked it in my bracket, and I said Heat in 7, and Tyler Hero says he was on the 5 Reasons Sports there, awesome Miami Heat.
5 on the floor.
Podcast 5 on the floor, but it's 5 Reasons Sports Network. And they had Tyler Hero on. He said, I was telling all my family from home or my friends from home, whoever, we were gonna win that series in 4 games or 5 games. Like we knew we had their number. Like, and if you watch Heat basketball, you know that. So I forgive you, Colin Cowherd.
Yeah, we didn't play like a 5 seed at all.
Yeah, I forgive you, Colin Cowherd, and even Skip Bayless, who actually he's been tweeting, the Heat. So now Skip Bayless.
Now he needs someone. The Clippers are out. Kawhi's out. He needs someone to ride.
So, but that's the thing I want to say is like these guys, and that's why the national media is covering so much Jason Tatum. And Nick Wright, like who's someone who I like a lot. I think his points are like pretty logical, and he definitely has an emotional blast towards LeBron. But at least he backs it up with a lot of numbers.
Yeah.
Even for all you people who still think no, Jordan's the GOAT, he backs up his argument. But what I'll say is, after the game, he didn't tweet one thing about a Miami Heat player. He didn't even say the Miami Heat at all. It was just, the Celtics choked. What
Tatum
happened to
this,
that?
Tatum
What
that.
happened to all those draft picks they had, and they never traded for Kawhi or Anthony Davis or whatever. And all on Tatum, you're right, and just calling out Tatum. And it's never about, how great Bam Adebayo is, how great Jimmy Butler is, because they're trying to get more views and listens, and they get that through saying these things about the Celtics and the Clippers and the Lakers. Those teams are the teams that people want to watch on, and that's why I'm excited to see how they're going to cover this NBA Finals, because nobody watched the Miami Heat all year long.
You already know. John, if they were covering Tatum more than they were covering any Heat players, now we're playing against LeBron. It's not going to be any different.
Oh yeah,
But one thing I will say is I'm glad that we're, Bam is a household name now. People know what we're capable of, and Bam, with his emergence, he's definitely ahead of schedule. When he got drafted, 2017, I saw that pick. Not a lot of Heat fans were super crazy about it. It was a low lottery pick, and
it's because we had Whiteside though.
We had Whiteside, and that's what my thing was like. I saw him like, we're gonna have a block party. Like, he's gonna be swatting shots. He's a very good defensive player. Like, that's awesome. And in his first year, one thing we saw, obviously, we very much saw the defensive potential. There were flashes of the offensive potential, but I remember there was one game where we played Golden State, and he locked down Steph Curry on one play on a switch. I was like, okay, this dude's definitely
the
special.
way he gets his hip low and he can move his feet, the agility, he can defend 1 through 5.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I think right now he's definitely with how he's become, how he's grown as an offensive player. We saw the flashes. Now he can pass the ball, and dropping 32 points, he can get to the rack. How about the jumper, John? People were saying, Bam needs a jumper. That's the one thing. Of course, he can't necessarily shoot a 3 yet, but the fact that he can knock down the 15, 20-footer fairly consistently, it's incredible. And I think he's definitely one of the best two-way players in the league already. And this is really his first full season. Obviously, last year he's been in the league for 2 years. Last year he got more minutes, but this year was like, all right, Bam, you're the starter. You're a guy.
Yeah,
he gave him the
still
keys.
Splitting with Whiteside, which I can't believe that was only last season, because it seems like 2 years ago,
crazy.
which it really was.
Which with Wade, which. Maybe, do you want to talk about Wade a little bit? I have a few things to say about Dwayne Wade, the most viral player in our franchise history.
Go right ahead.
Do you remember when we were in Chipotle, John, in the middle, or not the middle, probably early July in 2016, and we got that dreadful notification on our phone? Dwayne Wade is going to the Chicago Bulls.
I literally I fell down on the floor. I was fully sitting. I was about to order their burrito or bowl, and I just slide down the wall, and I fall down, and I'm sitting on the ground. Just I couldn't feel my legs. I was like, oh my gosh, Dwayne Wade just left our team.
Yep.
What does this mean?
And last year, as Wade retired, I had a hard time reconciling that one blemish on his seemingly perfect Miami Heat career. There was that one thing that was like the elephant in the room. Oh yeah, he left for those 1.5 season, whatever it was. But if you look at it, if Wade never leaves, this is probably not possible for a few reasons.
I don't know if it is.
For a few reasons. One, who does Dwayne Wade go to play with in Chicago? Jimmy Butler. What happens with Jimmy Butler? Some things as they become very good friends, and Wade kind of is talking about the distinction between the Bulls are the first team that he had played with other than the Heat. And he's noticing the Miami Heat differences, the culture, the work ethic, all the things.
He took it for granted.
He took it for granted. Maybe not that he took it for granted, but now he realized going somewhere else, he realized it.
Oh, yeah.
And Jimmy Butler, a guy who he loves all those things that Wade would have told him about.
He didn't know it existed.
Minnesota, Philadelphia, there's this dysfunction everywhere, and he there. I don't know where I read this. There was something, but when he was a free agent, he was talking to his agent, and they were giving him the list, and he was just saying, "Listen, Jimmy, like, you know, most teams there's no perfect team for you. You're gonna have to pick one." And he said, "Well, what about the Heat?"
Because he had
been hearing about from Dwayne all these things about the Heat. So he comes. So that now I feel much better as someone who loves Dwayne Wade. You know,
it served a purpose.
It came full circle. It served a purpose. And Dwayne Wade tweeting last night, you know, I'm so effing happy for Jimmy right now.
Yeah,
I loved it. I love to see it.
And just quickly before we now get into the final storylines, just that we're going to touch on briefly before we finish up this episode, I wanted to talk about what this team, what the lesson that it shows in rebuilds. And we've seen this for the past few years in a different few. There's Eastern Conference teams I would point to. One I would talk about is the 2017 Celtics to 2018 and how they completely switched their team. They only had 4 similar players. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what a lot of rebuilds look like. And they were the number 1 seed in 2017, and then the following year they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals with a completely different roster.
That was really what they had. They had Tatum and then they had Kyrie.
They basically only kept Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, and like one other, I can't even remember who. What was it? Hayward? No, they didn't have Hayward yet. But basically, it just shows that these year to year, you have to crack some eggs to make the omelet. And I want to compare this, and I have to shout out our good guy, our friend, Kurt Carlson, who said this like early in the year. Miami Heat, they're like the 2019 Toronto Raptors. Like, they could make the finals. And that's when I was like, all right, like, I think we're a tough out in the playoffs, but finals just seemed ridiculous to talk about. This was like when Kendrick Nunn started to really ball towards the beginning of the season, right? But we see these rebuilds, we see these teams flip big switches year to year. So just talking about the Raptors, the comparison. They had that Lowry, DeRozan, Valanciunas core. And what do? They traded DeRozan, they swapped it for Kawhi and Danny Green. They put him beside Kyle Lowry. They're already a completely different team. But then I don't know when they traded for Serge Ibaka, I think they had him the year before, but they had Serge Ibaka. Then they also traded for Gasol mid-season, and they groomed their young guys like Van Vliet, Siakam, who dropped 30,
and Norman Powell, who's emerging even more now.
And OG Anunoby, who I still can't pronounce his right name fully correctly.
Yeah, you
but
do sound funny.
Those 4 guys all were like players that they didn't have really the year before. So now by this point, they only had one guy that was the same from their 2018 team, and it was Lowry. And now in 2019, they're a title team. We all know the Warriors were very hurt, but they still were a championship team. They were a team that made the NBA Finals at the least.
And you have Kawhi.
Right. And the Heat had something with Justice Winslow, with Josh Richardson, with Hassan Whiteside. And I remember watching like a clip of the Heat. I forget why. Maybe it was before the playoffs one year, but it was Pat Riley talking. Yeah, we really have these young guys, Justice Winslow, Whiteside, Josh Richardson, Tyler Johnson. Like really those 4 guys for our future going forward. And it's crazy to think that none of those guys are on our team right now.
In 2017, do you remember, John, we started the season. That was the year we thought we were taking 11 and 30.
I thought we were going to get Alonzo Ball.
We finished the season 30 and 11. That was the team we had Deion Waiters, James Johnson. That's why they all got paid.
Yeah.
They all got paid for those
But you know what? Look at, so now to complete this Raptors comparison, look at what the Raptors did and how their team was completely different. Even though they were the number 1 seed in 2018, completely swapped their team, and they were a title team the next year. Similarly this year, sadly, we have to swap Josh Richardson for Jimmy Butler. We had to make that deal. It had to happen.
And I was more sad. I mean, I wasn't sad. I was just like, I like Josh Richardson, but of course I'll take Jimmy for him. Right. And looking back, it's like, yeah, of course, like it's not even a question.
And we love Josh. I wish we could have kept him. I loved him. And we had to draft Bam a few years before that. Even though we at that point I liked Whiteside. We paid him $100 million. I liked him. I was like, he
got paid the year before, so that might have been one of the first years that he was.
It didn't make sense. I was like, why are we drafting an undersized rim protector? Like, why are we drafting Bam Adebayo? Who is this kid, right? And then we had to trade Whiteside for Myers Leonard. Thank God. At that point, I was ready to get rid of him. And eventually, we had to trade Justice Winslow, who we also loved, for Iguodala and Crowder.
And at the moment, we had a podcast. We were literally filming live, and we saw on notification the Miami's traded, and we were like, what? No, why would we get rid of Winslow? And how about that? We didn't even talk about this guy yesterday, about his performance last night. Iguodala, we've seen Jay Crowder. He's been amazing since we traded for him, shooting lights out, even though he's a mediocre shooter. and he's been ice cold the last 3 or 4 games. Iguodala comes in 4 for 4 3-pointers, man, and
that's what we got him.
That's the difference. That is why I was like, okay, it came full circle.
That Finals MVP DNA.
Exactly, it's the DNA that he has.
That I still joke about because I think LeBron was that Finals MVP in 2015, even though he was on the losing team. But we can get into that.
Another argument for another day.
But yeah, and then similarly to the way the young guys on the Raptors stepped up, none stepped up during the regular season. Bam leveled up. He was like Siakam's most improved player season in 2019. Hero became our Fred VanVleet guy to hit those clutch shots at the end of the games, even though he's super young and he's kind of not really many people knew about him. Butler is our Kawhi now, and Dragic was our Lowry, the one guy that we kept on. And that's just something that was so beautiful to see in this rebuild, that we swapped out the guys, and then we had to crack the eggs to make the omelet. And it's weird to think that Josh Richardson, if you told us 2020 the Heat are going to be the finals, you would have thought Justice Winslow and Josh Richardson became all-stars. And we swapped them.
I mean,
and we had to do that, and you know, it was good to see that throughout the playoffs. You know, Winslow was tweeting at the Heat, and Tyler Johnson last night said, you know, congrats to the Heat, like their culture's just different, their talent's different, whatever. And so it was beautiful to see, and it's just so fulfilling and rewarding to see, like, as a fan, that's what makes winning so incredible when you're a fan, because you were with it through the losing seasons, through last year, with that Wade farewell season, and we didn't make the playoffs.
I was very disappointed at the end of the season we weren't able to make the playoffs.
In 2017, we also missed the playoffs that year when we finished 30-11, right? And through those, and even 2018, I really thought we had a legit shot to beat the Sixers in that first round.
Sixers team, and they
lost.
They curve stomped us.
Right, and even in 2016, Game 7 versus the Raptors in the conference semifinals, we wanted to go back to meet LeBron in the conference finals, play the Heat versus LeBron when he was with the Cavs, and we didn't get to do it in 2016 either. So now this is going to be that much sweeter. We get to face LeBron, and it's in the NBA finals.
That's
on the
right,
biggest
John.
stage.
Heat Lakers finals, and I know if you guys have been listening to our show, people who are listening to this, you know that throughout the playoffs and before the playoffs, I was kind of saying Heat Lakers is, if I had to make a bracket with my heart, it'd be Heat Lakers. Like that's what I would put. And even as soon as we signed Jimmy, and as soon as I think the Clippers got Kawhi, and that whole free agency, July 2019, we were counselors at summer camp. And I remember the cabin that I had, the cabin that was next door to me, really, there was a good amount of them that liked the NBA. And so, when all those free agent signings were happening, the Lakers get Davis, Kawhi and Paul George to the Clippers, Heat get Butler. Like, all right, who's making the finals, guys? Let's all write it down. And some people said, Sixers, Clippers, Bucks, Clippers, a lot of Lakers picks. And I was like that one. I was, I'm a Heat fan. Like, Heat Lakers. So I have it in my notes written down. I said Heat Lakers fully, and that was literally, I would have said Heat if we were projected to tank that season. Probably.
You should have put $10 on it.
I know, right? But so I was like Heat Lakers, and literally, like, once again, just my heart. Of course, I love LeBron, and we'll talk about that too. But I really think, John, the basketball gods rewarding us for watching 5 years of the Warriors be in the playoffs, and just. As soon as I got Durant, how disappointing that was. In the next 2 seasons, you knew it was going to happen. All right, they're going to win the next 2. LeBron, unfortunately, his title window just shrunk a ton because that team's unbeatable. And now, it was all worth it. Now we get to see our favorite team play our favorite non-Heat player. And it's not, I want to say it's a win-win because, of course, if the Heat win, heck yeah, awesome. We'll be
We won
ecstatic.
the title.
We'll be ecstatic. But if you have to lose to anyone, would we rather lose to anyone than LeBron James? No. As Heat fans, there's no one else.
Thank God it's not like the Warriors or the Celtics or like the Sixers. Those are the teams that I would not stand losing to.
Or even the Clippers. Oh,
right.
That would not have been good. That's a half hour of our Heat coverage. We had to go in depth, of course. This is going to be one of the most memorable times as being Miami sports fans for us in our life.
Course.
But John, let's talk about LeBron. A few nights back, he clinched his 9th finals appearance in the last 10 years. I mean, what the heck? 3 different teams, Miami, Cleveland, now he's on Los Angeles Lakers, different rosters, different supporting casts. The one common denominator, LeBron James. You have LeBron, you pretty much have a ticket to the finals. I mean, the only year he didn't make it, the year he was injured, right? He probably wouldn't have made it anyway, but what do you think, John? What were some thoughts you had watching that, or
so I mean, clearly,
LeBron, big picture?
When he went to 8 straight finals from 2011 to 2018, we already had talked about. Everyone was talking about what incredible feat that was. But now 10 finals, getting to double digits is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this to me the other day, Alex. he could have the record for most finals appearances if he went to 11, 12, and 13, right? That would be more than Bill Russell.
Bill Russell has the most, and he has 12 appearances.
Right.
So
I don't know if LeBron. I don't know if after this one I could see him getting to 2 more maybe if he stays with Davis, of course. But even to just go now in a more pessimistic path. My first takeaway watching the end of that game was it was supposed to be different, and that's because of the Clippers. We were supposed to see the Lakers. To LeBron over Kawhi and Paul George and the Lakers over the Clippers. And that was supposed to be the conference finals in 6 or 7 games. And we were supposed to see that happen. And I just hate that now people who, these are not the truthers, like, you know, these are not the people speaking the truth about sports and that are really, I don't think, watching it. But these are like the LeBron haters. They have the excuse now, like the Skip Baylesses of the world. Congratulations, LeBron. You just beat the Denver Nuggets. You wouldn't have beaten the Clippers. The Clippers didn't even make it there. How can anyone say that? And people are going to take this away from LeBron.
I think it's going to be
take this accomplishment away.
It's going to be very hard for them to do it because of 2 things. One, all right, LeBron, 8 straight finals. Let's see what happens when you go out west. Now you're in the deep Western Conference. And I mean, we said it too. And people talked about, we can go back to receipts. It's not hard to find these receipts where people were giving the Damian Lillard and the Shelby's a legitimate shot to beat them. Charles Barkley, for one, said that they were going to sweep the Lakers. Obviously, that one, he's in the minority with that. But a lot of people said, oh, this Portland team is dangerous. Yeah,
and now they're saying, oh, well, in hindsight, that Portland team wasn't that good. And you know what? Just Skip Bayless, people like him and I'm trying to think who else. I can't remember. But basically, he was tweeting like, oh, congrats, LeBron. You got to beat James Harden in the playoffs, 32 and 39 team, and then you didn't even have to beat the Clippers. You beat the Nuggets. And in hindsight, everyone was saying Portland's the best 8 seed ever. The Rockets are going to be a super tough out in the second round. And then in the third round, you're going to go up against the Clippers, the team that beats you in the regular season, that matches up well against LeBron, whatever. And AD's going to have to prove himself. And then you're going to
take on the Defensive Player of the Year and the MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Right. But guess what? The teams, if you're not there, then the other team is better. That's
exactly. The Denver Nuggets are better than the team, than that Clippers team that choked away, that blew a 3-1 lead, that couldn't show up in games 5, 6, and 7, back to back, or three back to back. And similarly with the Heat. The Heat beat that Bucks team 4-1.
And then we beat a very good Celtics team right after.
That Heat is much better than either the Celtics or the Bucks.
And this matchup, John.
But people are still going to take it away if LeBron wins.
Of course. I mean,
it was an easy path. It just broke for him to win.
What I will say is we know how good the Heat are. They're an incredible team. And, the Lakers have the top 2 guys in the series, but then you go down 3-7 or whatever, 3-9, I don't know, whatever it is. The Heat probably have the next best, 6 or 7 guys.
The next best, Bam, Butler, Dragic, Hero.
Maybe.
I might even say Duncan
Robinson. Do they have anyone as good as Duncan
I would
Robinson?
say I might put Duncan before I put Rondo. Really good playmaker, veteran guy, smart player on the court.
I dispute that. But anyway, so the fact that they're so top heavy and it's LeBron versus this kind of ragtag team of Heat players, that's how most people see it. If they do lose, if the Lakers do lose this series, people are going to tear LeBron to shreds.
And we can save our finals picks for next episode. We're going to do, right now it's Monday morning, we're recording this. We will record one Wednesday morning. That'll be our finals preview. But, I want to shout out to the podfather, Bill Simmons, who, we always listen to on the Bill Simmons podcast, who he was quick to say, I think after the Heat were up maybe 1-0, 2-0 against the Celtics, he said if the Heat make the finals and they play against that Lakers team, they have some 0-4 Pistons potential. Essentially meaning this defensive, underdog team beating the Lakers superstars, Kobe and Shaq, right? That's what the Pistons did in 0-4. And they won, I think it was 4-1. They won in five games, I want to say. The Heat are similar, and Bill Simmons said it first, this team that's just a more deep team, maybe a little more chemistry, and 1 through 5, you trust their guys more. Obviously, we don't have anyone as good as Anthony Davis or as LeBron James. The Miami Heat do not. But in terms of a team that's gonna play their butts off and that they're not just gonna fold the way the Clippers did, or even to some extent the Nuggets kind of did towards the end of those games, or even that we saw the Celtics. This Heat team is not gonna do that, and we're gonna be a tough out for this Lakers team.
Yeah, no matter
Anthony Davis and LeBron James are gonna need to go absolutely off to beat us 4 times.
I agree, and the only way I see them, winning in 4 or 5 games is if those 2 players combine and average 75 points during the series.
And we saw LeBron looks about as motivated as he has ever been, and you can tell when he not takes the night off, but like I'll point to Game 1 of the Blazers series where I reacted.
Where he had a
IG
stat.
Live.
By the way, he put up a stat line that no one's ever put up before.
Exactly, but still towards the end of the game, we saw him make passes and kind of defer a little bit, which is like, what are you doing, LeBron? Like, why are you giving up the ball at the end of the game? You need to clutch us out and win this. This Portland team could potentially beat you. Mm-hmm. And he knew the whole time, no, I need to pass. I need to get my guys involved. I'm not going to shoot these shots at the end because I know that if I'm going to win a championship, I need them here with me. And of course, LeBron was not fazed by being down 1-0 in the first round of the playoffs as a 1 seed because he's been down 3-1 in the NBA Finals, and he's come back from that before. Even he was down 2-0. Remember that 2018 Conference Finals?
Yeah.
He was down 2-0, then 3-2, then a hostile Boston crowd for Game 7. So he's been in places, so he knew he didn't have to worry. And similarly now, I think last game, in Game 5, we could have seen him take it off and be like more passive and pass to his guys. But he said, no, I'm closing this series out in 5. And he put up 38.
And there was that one stretch shot we were going crazy where
bucket,
he was just knocking everything down.
He scored like 9 straight points for the Lakers, like no one else had scored. And he said, I'm closing this out now. Like Nuggets, you guys are a respectable team, but bye. And so we could see that motivated LeBron show up and just take us out in 5 games.
You actually remind me, I did want to talk about something. People, the thing about LeBron is he loves to control the narratives, and whatever's being said about him or whatever, he's very intentional with everything that he does. Like every little step he takes, every word he says, very intentional because he knows how scrutinized he is. And one thing that happened, so after they went to the finals in 2018, LeBron plays 48 minutes in Boston for that Game 7, and after the game, with that team that you look up the roster, very weak roster. It's LeBron and just some guys basically. And after the game, while they're getting the trophy, his 8th straight, LeBron's like laying down in the back,
right?
On the
While
ground.
J.R. Smith is hoisting the trophy over his head.
And to me, that felt natural and it made sense. I will say the other night where he's off to the side, just sitting on the ground with his arms around his knees, I was like, okay, that's an actually example where LeBron looked to me like he was very clearly doing something that's like. Come on, LeBron. People are looking at you.
It's
like, that's why you're doing it. It seemed a little forced. And after
they
the
asked
game,
him why
they
he was
asked
doing
him
it.
why he's doing it. He's like,
I have to catch my breath.
I have to catch my breath after playing one of the most respected teams that I've ever played in my career.
One of the best coach teams.
One of the best coaches, blah, blah, blah. Which, give Denver their credit. Of course, it's a great team. But LeBron, come on, man. I want to see you standing up. I want to see, not I want to see you pumping your chest or anything like that. But you don't need to be off to the side. And I think that, and of course, we have to give him credit to year 17, 35, #Wash King, all that.
Yes. 35 years old is still ridiculous. And it's still, as much as we do talk about it, it's still not talked about enough. It's ridiculous. If you compare him to what other stars would do, MJ, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, what these guys were doing in their careers at that time, it's shocking.
Well, I saw
see him be the best player in the NBA.
Someone went through all the guys. It was like...
Right.
Magic was out of the league.
Larry was hurt.
Larry was injured and wasn't doing anything crazy.
MJ won a ring, I think.
MJ had just retired. I think that was the last season. So yeah. So anything after this, he would literally, he's been a league by himself pretty much. But yeah, LeBron sitting to the side. It didn't feel as natural. It seemed to make as much sense to me as when he's doing it in 2018
but he's gonna
after 7 games, playing 48 minutes, fully carrying that team. But
if he wins this one again, he's gonna talk about the Heat like they were the Warriors and say that was one of the toughest opponents, and he's gonna have to do that because he feels like he has to, and it's unfortunate because I think he should let the resume speak for itself, and I think after this title there is gonna be more of a shift. If he wins it, there's going to be more of a shift.
No doubt. I mean,
and going into next season,
when he gets to 4 rings, whew.
And going into next season, though, who's favored? Are the Clippers all of a sudden?
Well, I'll tell you, no. I mean, if the Lakers win the championship, the Lakers will be favored for a couple of reasons. I actually think, all right, you have LeBron, and Davis is going to sign long term. You have LeBron, and LeBron still has yet to show any major declines. And I think this will they can actually be better next year, John. Because you look at their roster. We just talked about how the Heat. You look 1 and 2, Davis and LeBron, but then 3 through 7, 3 through 9, the next few guys not as strong.
And there is
so if they're able to strengthen their bench, and I haven't really looked at free agents too much, but if they can get another guy who's he's gonna be your third option. Maybe Kuzma is able to level up after winning a championship. Who knows? So I think they have a chance to even be better. Mm-hmm. That being said, I might honestly throw, if you had to give me odds right now, I'd throw money on the Clippers just because a team that talented, I expect them to bounce back. But that, let's not get too off topic.
Yeah. All right. We're already doing too much
Yeah.
on the finals.
So I think that wraps it up, John. I mean, do you have any final thoughts? I
also
feel great.
One
I feel
last
great.
shout out to the greatest coach in the league right now, Coach Eric Spoelstra.
We didn't talk enough about.
We did not
Spoelstra.
talk enough about him, but we'll definitely get to that in our, when we talk about X factors for next series for the finals for our matchups.
Coach
and whatnot.
circles around Brad Stevens.
Literally, and he's gonna do it again for the 4th time in his career, I believe, around Coach Frank Vogel of the LA Lakers.
Yeah, that's another fun
formerly Indiana Pacers head coach,
Oh
right?
my goodness.
So we need to shout him out. He now reaching his 5th finals as an NBA head coach. The only coaches with more than him right now, Steve Kerr and Greg Popovich, that are currently coaches in the NBA.
Yeah.
No one else is as much as him. So yes, he is a top 3 if you want to put Kerr, who is coaching super teams. So I wouldn't even say
Yeah,
Kerr.
give me Spo.
Spo,
Give me Spo.
and Coach Greg Popovich,
Best
two
coach in the
greatest
league.
coaches in the NBA.
Best coach in the league. Wow, John. That does it. I actually don't have any classes in person today, so unfortunately I can't go wear my Heat jerseys. But I did do laundry yesterday, and I realized wow, I have only been wearing Heat jerseys and Heat shirts the past 2 weeks.
Make sure you order your locker room edition Miami Heat Eastern Conference
right.
champion stuff. It's on Dick's Sporting Goods.
enjoy it. All right. Thank you everyone for listening. Have a good one as always. Go Heat.